G'day everyone, welcome to this week's video. So today I'm actually going to be talking about how I edited one of my photos from my last video, which was in Noosa. Now this shoot was quite a tough one. I struggled quite a bit with compositions, but I ended up at the end finding a nice composition that I sat down and shot for about 10 minutes. I shot a lot of compositions, and this one was my favorite. I actually got it recently printed as well, so I am very fond of this image. But it was quite hard to shoot because the amount of dynamic range in the image was hard to manage and keep all within the walls of the histogram. But I did manage to do that, and I'm just going to be talking about how I edited this photo, pretty much all local edits to edit single parts of the image that would be either underexposed or overexposed, or maybe quite flat with not much color, and how I brought out the individual shades or the individual tones or colors within the image to suit the entire image. Now with this edit, I did edit the photo to how I saw it on the day, how I envisioned the image to come out. It is a lot of editing, but you know, my camera captured only a small part of the color and stuff like that, of course, because it's a raw file, it doesn't capture as much. So we're going to jump into Lightroom, and yes, this whole edit is within Lightroom. Lightroom has become such a powerful editing tool. You can do so much in it, pretty much it's replaced Photoshop for me. Yeah, so we'll jump into Lightroom and I'll show you how I went about editing this image. So this is the photo that I am going to be editing today. And the photo was actually quite dull. It was quite bland. There wasn't much within the photo. This is the completed edit that I have up on the screen here. But if I go next, that is the original file. You can see that it is really dull. There's not that much color within the photo, and it's quite underexposed as well. Now, the reason why it's this underexposed and this bland is because I was exposing for the highlights in the sky. And it was quite a high dynamic range scene, which means that there was a lot of bright and a lot of dark within the photo. Because it was sunset and the sun was quite low in the sky, it was casting some pretty major shadows within the photo. And in this photo, I also had my polarizer on, so that helped just cut back some of the haze in the sky and give it that really nice blue tone. So hopefully by the end of this edit, I'm going to have an image that looks kind of like this. Now this was shot on the Sony a7 III, and given that is an amazing camera, that camera has amazing ISO capabilities. It can pull back shadows so well, or pull up shadows so well, and I love it for that. It's so nice because none of this photo was actually outside of the walls, so none of the shadows was clipping and none of the highlights was clipping, so that means I have a lot of space to edit within to bring back those details in the photo that look like they're not there, but they are. So to start off with, every time what I do is I go to the crop tool and I just fix up that horizon. It was quite a tough position that I was shooting in because I was shooting on rocks. My tripod was in a bit of a awkward position, so not many of the photos are actually straight, which is a little bit annoying, but it's always fixable. And okay, that looks straight. And then the next thing I'm gonna do is I am going to just go to the clone tool and just go to visualize spots down here, and you can see these spots here from the lens, just dirt on the lens, and I'm just gonna fix that up. just with the clone tool. But what I'm going to do to start off with is I'm going to edit the sky. So I'm just going to grab a graduated filter here, and I'm just going to hold shift to keep the line straight, and I'm just going to bring that over the horizon cloud. Have quite a harsh graduation, so because I don't want it to go into the foreground. And then I'm going to press O to delete that. Future wheel here. I actually went back later on and made the graduation less sudden because I noticed that it was kind of creating a weird effect on the horizon. I also then remembered that I did that with my other edit as well. So yeah, probably best to have it less harsh when you do graduation filters, because it can create a weird sudden change to the image, and it's probably best to have that change over time. So to start off with, I think the sky could do with a bit of dehazing, bit of contrast. And this is all it is, like it's literally editing individual parts of the image until you're happy with it. Just quickly, I might just edit the exposure a little bit, and that looks a lot better for exposure. And so there is quite a bit of haze in there, and you can play around with it as much as you like. Some people are really careful about their haze, and you should be. I am too, but I want to create that vivid photo, that vivid feel to the image. And it is how I saw the photo coming out when I was on location. So I am only editing to fit how I saw it on the day. And then, so over here, you can see that it's quite bright over here. So what I might do for that, just actually, that looks pretty good. What I might do for that over there is grab the adjustment brush and just paint over this. Pressing O to show what you're painting. And then I'm just going to brush over the sky. Seriously, so easy. So quick. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to come down here to my favorite tool, go range mask, and I'm going to go luminance. You can't see that drop down menu because of the program that I'm filming on, but it says off, color, luminance, and depth. The ones that I use is color and luminance. This time around I'm going to use luminance. I'm going to tick show luminance mask, and that's just going to show all the bits that I'm editing. And I'm going to just bring it up to the highlights a bit and just paint over those white spots in the sky here where it is, where the sun is coming into the image and overexposing the image a bit. Just, it looks like it's clipping, but it's not. So I'm just going to paint over it, and you can see where it's grey is a lot less, but it is going to still edit it, just not as harshly as the white parts of the image. And this tool is so helpful. This is how I dodge and burn my images in Lightroom. When I don't want to take it into Photoshop, I just do this, and it's so helpful. Watch this. It's gonna be amazing how quickly this yeah, look at that. That is okay. That is obviously quite underexposed. So I'm gonna bring that back up, and to compensate for that haze that comes up when I expose it a bit more, I'm just gonna bring up that dehaze again, and that is gonna just bring back that brightness. And you know what, a bit of overexposed on the side here is okay. I think it adds a bit of a feel to the image. Just because it's clipping a little bit doesn't necessarily mean anything. Doesn't mean that it's not unusable. Obviously, a lot of people think that you got to bring back any bits in the image that is clipping. I don't agree with that. It's a silly rule. So I'm going to leave that as it is now. But as I edit the image further, I'm going to have to adjust that even more to fit how the foreground of the image down here looks, because I am going to be bringing up the exposure and the saturation down here, and also adjusting this white part in the ocean. But right now, what I think I want to do is just go here, just pull up that exposure a little bit more, just because it is looking a little bit dull. And to compensate for that, let's bring that dehaze up. And I'm happy with that. I'm really happy with that. Now, my favorite part of this edit is actually editing the rocks. It's amazing how quickly the image transforms once you edit these rocks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press O, show selected mask overlay. I'm just going to paint over this, over the rocks, just really roughly, because again, I'm going to be using a luminance mask, and this is what the luminance mask is made for. Pulling up these really harsh shadows within the image, or really harsh highlights, and it just helps transform the image from a normal, snapshot to an image that looks just incredible. And I'm going to press O again, and you can see already with this little preset that I've got going on here, it's fixed it quite a bit. And I'm going to go luminance mask, show luminance mask, and you can see all the bits that is changed. So the white is the bits that it's adjusting, or the whites is the highlights, the blacks are the shadows, and you can see all these rocks are black. So I'm going to bring this all the way down to the blacks until you see that red within all the shadows in the foreground. And then I'm just going to repaint over all of this, and it's amazing. You can adjust small amount of details within the image. So the little rock grooves in here, you could edit with just a really tight luminance mask, and I love that. I did that in one of the images from this set, so that I'm actually quite happy with. Just going to experiment. Yeah, look at that, that's a lot better. So you could bring it all the way down, and you can see you can edit right in the grooves, and I love that about this tool. Okay, so watch this. I am going to bring up the exposure, and oh, look at that. That looks so much better. But in the other one, in the other edit, there is, we do have quite a bit of a bit of a color within the image, and a great way to bring that out is dehaze, vibrance. Saturation, maybe I might use that, and clarity. Clarity is really good because it helps bring out the textures that is lost when you expose the image a bit more. You can see that it's quite soft down here, and I don't like that at all. So what I'm gonna do, it's sharp. Like, the details within this is really sharp, but if I bring up that clarity, you can see it just helps a little bit. You don't want to go overboard with clarity because it's quite a powerful tool. I'm also going to bring up the texture a little bit, just to I don't know if you would call it sharpen, but just to help bring out that, well, the texture. And then I'm going to dehaze it. I'm also going to bring up the shadows. Yeah, there we are. That's what I'm looking for. And so you can see now that the image actually kind of looks unbalanced with the sky to the rocks. I think the sky looks maybe a little bit too dark to be able to light up these rocks like this. So I'm going to probably bring up the brightness in the sky, and this is what I do as the image transforms and as I edit individual parts of the image. I always go back and edit it so that it looks real, so it looks as real as I can make it. When I say real, I mean this is how I saw it. So yeah, that looks actually really nice. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna bring up that saturation a wee bit, just to help bring out a bit of the orange in the rock. And that, I'm actually really quite happy with that. Let's have a look at the other image. Yeah, so you can see here, I've actually got quite a bit of clarity on this one. I think I edited, yeah, I edited the, this is the actual original file. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, so what I've done is I've edited the top, the sky, and then the bottom as well with a graduated filter. So I'm going to go through and edit the entire bottom of the image with a graduated filter, as well as the rocks with the adjustment brush. That's just going to help but bring the image all together, make it look more balanced, and yeah. So I'll do that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring up this sky just tiniest touch, 0.25, and that already looks really nice. And I'm going to pull a graduated filter over the foreground. Again, with the graduated filter, it's best to bring it further across the image than a harsher one. I did a harsher one for this one as well, but when I came back later on, I did make it a larger graduated filter, so it changes over time, and it's got more of a feather. It's got more of a feather to the graduation and not just a harsh stoppage. So now, what I'm doing here is I am editing the entirety of the bottom part of the image. You can see the overlay there. And I'm going to bring up that exposure just a touch. Actually, that might be too much. And bring up that contrast as well. And look at that. That's already looking so much better. Dehaze. Just a wee bit. I probably do go overboard on dehaze a bit sometimes. And frankly, I'm quite happy with that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a 4x5 image. Just because the composition isn't correct in that image. I'll explain to you why I feel like it's not correct. It's actually because of the rule of thirds here. But what I'm going to do is just 4x5. And you can see what I mean here. And it just helps bring it a lot more balance within the image. Having the main focus above this line here is the best way to compose your images. And I actually do edit in 4x5 quite a bit. Not because I get my composition wrong a lot in post. It's because I feel like the images are too tall. I just feel like this composition is a lot more soothing than something as tall as this. It's a lot less to look at, and plus there's nothing up here. There's nothing, and it just helps bring the image all together. And you know, frankly, I am really happy with this image. But the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring a adjustment brush over this white water here, because I feel like it is a bit of a distraction because it is quite bright. So I'm just going to bring it over. Again, I'm going to use a luminance mask just so that it isn't crossing over onto those rocks like it is right now. So I'm going to bring it down to range mask luminance and show luminance mask, and I'm just going to bring that up to the highlights so that it's not editing the rocks. Just paint over that white part of the image. So it's got to go to the highlights, not the exposure, because the exposure is really harsh. Yeah, so it's only a touch, like it's barely even you can barely even tell, but even that, you know, it helps just draw the eye towards the actual subject, which is this big rock. But yeah, I am very happy with how this image has come out, and yeah, that has been, you know, a reasonably quick edit for what this image was before, which was this. This was the image before, and this is the image after. I think it's such a powerful way to edit locally. I might just do, I might try and do a few just little edits, but what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna come down to the lens corrections and remove chromatic aberration and enable profile corrections. I normally do that actually at the beginning of the edit, but I forgot to do it, which happens sometimes. But I'm also going to edit the sharpening, so I'm just holding Alt, I think that's Command on Mac, and I'm just bringing across the masking, and that's just going to show what I'm actually sharpening, and I only want to sharpen the rocks here, so I'm just going to bring it over that. And 40 is okay for sharpening, I think, for this image, because it is already quite sharp. And you know what? I'm happy with that. I am happy with that. You know, there's always something that you could do to make it look even better, but what I would do from here is to know that this edit is done and ready to be printed. I'd go off for a day, and then I come back a day later and have a look at it again. As well as that, I'd look at the soft proofing, use the ICC profile to make sure that it matches the colors correctly, and edit it accordingly. But yeah, that is that. I'm really happy with that image. So again, to show you the before and after, it's such a powerful tool, those tools. It helps with editing high dynamic range photos, and that is pretty much my workflow for editing high dynamic range images. So that is going to be the video for today. I really hope that you found this video helpful. Everyone has a different workflow, and I know that for sure. And for me, I edit to make the image look like how I foresaw it on the day that I shot the image. So when I was out on location, that was how the scene looked. It was stunning, and I will leave a link down in the description to the other video where you can see how I photographed this image and a lot of other photos. But yeah, I hope you really enjoy this video, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do consider subscribing. I'm normally out on location, taking photos around Sydney and Queensland, and I'm actually gonna be getting a new lens today, which I'm very excited about, so stay tuned for a video of that. Yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.